March 2023 Astronomical Mischief, now on Weather Buff. I am Jack Knack, the weather medic, the doctor of weather, with some early March 2023 astronomy. In this video, we will discuss where to find the moon, the planets. This is the Stellarium online web planetarium that you could download onto your computer. The link is in the description. We're going to take a look at the moon on March 1st at about 7:30 at night, and it's almost directly south if you're looking up in the sky, and it moves slowly east as you're going day by day. So let's look at it on March 2nd. It's moving to the east here. Then March 3rd, more east. March 4th, March 5th. Notice how it's a waxing gibbous moon. It's getting a little bit bigger every day. March 6th, it's almost to a full moon, and it's toward the east here. We'll zoom that up, the eastern horizon. And then on March 7th, the moon is rising in the east. It's 6th and the 7th. It's at full moon. It's going to be glowing nearly overhead around midnight. If I zoom this up, it's due south, and it's going to be out the entire night long, visible the entire evening. And as I go toward the early morning hours, it's going to move west, and as I continue it to 4 or 5 in the morning, by 6:30 in the morning, it's starting to get light here. So, but you notice by 5:30 in the morning, it's going toward the western horizon. The crest of this full moon falls on 12:40 UTC on March 7th, 2023. Popular names for the March full moon are the worm moon, crow moon, and the sap moon. The name worm moon honors the stirring of earthworms and insect larvae in the slowly warming late and early spring soil. Note, at full moon, the sun, earth, and the moon align in space with the earth in the middle. As a result, the moon's day side, its fully lighted hemisphere, directly faces us. That's why the moon appears full. The March 6th through 7th full moon is the moon closest full moon to the 2023 March equinox, which falls at 21:24 UTC on March 20th. Many of the full moons do have unique characteristics. This is because the moon's arc in the sky follows the arc of the sun 6 months either earlier or later, depending on how you think of it, but it's the sun's arc what it was 6 months ago at the time. So March's full moon follows the arc of the sun on September 6th and 7th. The arc of the sun in September quickly loses altitude in the northern hemisphere from the high sun angle in the summer to the low sun angle as we approach winter. And this is opposite in the southern hemisphere. Well, the same can be said regarding the moon's altitude, which we'll explain below regarding the harvest moon. It's the spring equinox for the northern hemisphere, and it's the autumn equinox for the southern hemisphere. So for us in the northern hemisphere, the March full moon shows characteristics opposite that of a harvest moon. Meanwhile, in the southern hemisphere, the full moon has all those characteristics of that harvest moon. What are the harvest moon's characteristics? For example, all full moons rise at around sunset, Every full moon arcs across the sky throughout the night. We've shown that, and sets around dawn. For us in the northern hemisphere, the arc of this March full moon is lower than the paths of the full moon of December, January, and February, with the June arc being the lowest of the year. For those in the southern hemisphere, the full moon's arc across the sky is climbing higher with each successive month, and then it'll continue to do so around the June solstice. And because the full moon moves eastward in orbit, the moon typically rises about 50 minutes later with each passing day, but around the time of the harvest moon, there's only a short lag time between successive moon rises. The lag time between successive moon rises reaches a yearly minimum. For instance, at around 40 degrees south latitude, around the time of the March full moon, the moon rises only about 30 to 35 minutes later each day, as the moon altitude rises very quickly day by day. The short time between successive moon rises continues for several days. So around the time of the autumn equinox and the harvest moon, there's a bright, full-looking moon in the early evening sky for several evenings in a row, and that's a harvest moon. In the northern hemisphere, in many years, the March full moon is the closest full moon to our spring equinox. So the time lag between successive moon rises reaches a yearly maximum. In other words, there's an especially long time between moon rises from one night to the next around the time of the March full moon. As the moon's altitude is getting rapidly lower every day, just as the sun's altitude gets rapidly lower at the start of fall. For instance, at 40 degrees north latitude, the moon rises about some 75 minutes later from one night to the next, around the time of the March full moon. The longer than usual time between successive moon rises continues for several days. So around the time of the spring equinox and the March full moon, there's a longer than usual period of darkness, no moon in the early evening, for several days in a row following the date of the full moon. So let's take a look at that on Stellarium. This is the full moon rising toward the east on the 7th of March at about 7:30 at night. Now the next night, if I move the date to the 8th, the moon is just starting to rise out of the east. And if I move the date at 7:40 at night, if I move it to the 9th, it's below the horizon, and I'm going to up the time to about 8:40. And notice, moving it an hour, it's just barely ticking the horizon toward the east at 8:40. Now, if I move it to the 10th, it's below the horizon, and if I switch the time to 9:40, the moon is still below the horizon. I'm going to have to take that time to about 10 o'clock for the moon to rise on the 10th. The moon is at the horizon on the 11th. On the 12th, at midnight, it's just coming up around the horizon. And that's how the moon rises about 75 minutes later from one night to the next at this time of the year. It'll be the opposite when I show you in September, how it kind of hangs around night after night for several days. Notice by March 15th, 2023, the moon is in its last quarter phase and just coming up above the horizon at about 4 in the morning. Full moons and Easter. The March full moon sometimes sets the date of Easter Sunday, but not in 2023. In 2023, we have a full moon in early March and another full moon in early April. Easter comes on the first Sunday following the full moon after the March equinox. So the April full moon on the night of April 5th through 6th, 2023, sets the date of Easter Sunday, which is April 9th, 2023. Let's talk about the evening visible planets starting in early March. Well, on March 1st, we had a conjunction of the planets Venus and Jupiter. It's showing here in the western sky a little after 7 o'clock. And what's happening is that Venus will be rising each day. Jupiter will be sinking further west into the sunset glare and then sinks out of view later in the month. So enjoy watching the two worlds in the western twilight. With binoculars, you can see the giant red spot on Jupiter, the king planet, and some of its moons. With Venus, you can see that the planet is not full, but a crescent, and it is an inner planet. So let's take a look at how these planets separate as we go on, starting through the month at the same time. So this is second, notice third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, the reason I hit 12 is remember to set your clocks so you spring forward. That's why we're in the sunset now, in the glare of the sun. So let me set that back an hour. And now we're at 8 o'clock at night, a little afterwards, and you can see the spread and Jupiter slowly sinking, slowly rising. And by mid-month, that's the spread of the planets already to the western sky. Meanwhile, Mars is, the moon has passed Mars on the March 1st, and Mars is located in the southwestern sky in the evening. As I click through the days for the first half of March, Mars doesn't move much at all. Okay. So Mars is still in the southwestern sky by mid-month. Let's talk about the visible planets in the morning. This is the eastern sky in the morning going about 5 a.m., a little afterwards. Mercury is invisible in early March from the northern hemisphere. The first week of March, see Mercury in the sunrise direction for viewing from the Earth's southern hemisphere. Saturn is invisible in early March and is currently orbiting behind the sun as seen from Earth. What do we mean by a bright planet? By a bright planet, we mean any solar system planet that is easily visible without an optical aid and that has been watched by our ancestors since time immemorial. In their outward order from the sun, the 5 bright planets are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These planets actually do appear bright in our sky. They are typically as bright or brighter than the brightest stars. Plus, these relatively nearby worlds tend to shine with a steadier light than the distant twinkling stars. If you want to see more of these posts or would like to say thanks for this one, please consider becoming a supporter. To support the channel, go to patreon.com/WXMedic. This is Jack Knack, the Weather Medic, the Doctor of Weather. Thanks for making Weather Buff a part of your day. Good day, everyone.
Weather Buff. Your backyard.